Ago.
Amen.
Ago.
Amen.
Ago.
Amen.
Or let me do it in Yoruba. Ago. Same word. I'd like to thank all of you for coming here for our very last day of the Black History Month Film Festival, also known as the African World Documentary Film Festival. I don't know how loud this mic is, but I can talk without it. But at any rate, this is going to be very interesting. We're looking at the other side of the Atlantic and Rock Hill counter histories. So, you know, with no further ado, we'll go ahead and get in, and then as always, we'll conclude with a discussion. So again, thank you for coming and supporting our Black History Month Film Festival for our 4th year with the support of Prof. Coker in the back. We'll have many, many more years to come.
Many more.
All right, thank you very much. All right, so we had 2 interesting films to wrap up our film series, and hopefully we'll have equally Blacktastic, Blacknificent, and Blackerific discussion. So as always, I want to turn it over to the audience. Any comments, ideas, concerns, questions, thoughts in general about either of the 2 films? Do Otro Lado do Atlántico, other side of the Atlantic, or Counter History is Rock Hill. Don't be shy.
Yeah, which of them do you want to say? Guy has he's written a textbook out of what he's watched so far.
How many people were shocked at the racism in Brazil? How many people were shocked at the racism in Brazil? Okay. Yeah. And you know there are more black people in Brazil than there anywhere else in the world other than Africa? Yes.
You have something to say? Say something.
As he asked about the Brazil one, I was surprised at the racism because I thought most people there are colored like us. So if you are just like me, why should there be a problem if I'm to associate with you in terms of relationship? And your parents will say, because I'm black or I'm from Africa, there's a problem, or they have a problem with that. I thought that was on the level of, I think it happens not just in Brazil, because I've heard hate words from black Americans towards Africans saying that there was this rapper, I don't know if, yeah, he said something about Africa, that thank God for slavery or something. Like, it was like, he's glad something like that happened. If not, he would have been in Africa. So if you're having something like this going on, it's not encouraging to us blacks as well, because even our own people are hating on us. How much more the whites? What do we expect them to do? They started it, so it's a whole lot. I'm just surprised. Yeah.
Yeah, about the Brazil.
Actually, you could realize that the issue is not about the color. but it's actually about where they are coming from, which is Africa. So that is the context. It's not about being black, because most of them too are also black, but because they are coming from Africa, that's where the everything starts from. And also, one of the guys said that Africa, we have to think for ourselves using other people's experience in our context. But what we are doing, we are using other people's experience in their context. We are not using it in our own context. That is what I noticed in the first place. And the second one thing that one of the guys said we have to know ourselves. I remember vividly Marcus Garvey said something that a man who becomes possessor of the knowledge of himself becomes a master of his environment, captain of his own ship, the director of his own destiny, and accomplisher of his own end. We have to become knowledge of that. We need to possess the knowledge of ourselves. We need to know ourselves as Africans, what our ancestors did, what they were, where we are going, and what we should also be doing. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Before I say something, I want to quote something from, actually it's a statement made by Francis Galton. Francis Galton, who happens to be the president and the founder of the American Eugenic Society. And I quote, he said, "I do not join in the belief that the African is equal in brain or in heart. I do not think that the average Negro cares for his liberties as much as an Englishman. And I believe that if we can, in any fair way, possess ourselves of his services, we have an equal right to utilize them in our advantage." He made this statement in 1856. Okay, so last semester, we were having one of these series about the black genocide, and one guy at the back here said something about the SMA, that food that they give to babies, that it has some chemicals that indirectly sterilize the baby, so when it grows up, he's not able to produce, give birth. And I believe it's another way of the whites trying to exterminate Africans, but we don't know. And then I want to also believe the UN are also involved, but their works are hidden. We don't know, but indirectly they are killing Africans. I told one of our ladies in the house that if she gives birth, he should feed her baby with this natural food. And said no, the SMA is the best. The latolin is the best. And I tried to explain, but she said no. It's what they've been eating since time immemorial, so it's the same food that they eat. That's okay. So you see, it's like, okay, I, for instance, I'm putting in much effort to convey this message, but it's like they've already made up their minds. Yes. Yeah. So I don't know what to say again. So we should be very, very careful with these whites. They don't like us at all. At all. Thank you.
Thank you for noticing.
Okay, I also learned that racism is not inherited, but it is taught. And you see, Africa is a place of opportunities. We have a lot of resources, but it's just that I don't know, we are failing to accept what we have, and mostly to our leaders don't help. So I don't know how to put it, but we think how do I say? Okay, we must utilize our resources like, okay, I don't really know how to express myself well, but Africa is a place of opportunity, so we just have to make use of the resources, and also we shouldn't be dependent on the whites, because dependency kind of, like, if you are over dependent, it doesn't bring about like respect. It's like people look down upon you, so we should learn to utilize our resources well. Yeah.
Thank you. Please, any comment? I'm sure something struck you while you're watching the documentary, so if there is any thought you want to share with us, we'll be very glad.
Well, I think we've learned a lot. In our context, one of the things I see is that we are not so much privy to some of these things. And the experience that the Africans have in the diaspora is quite different from what we have here. Within the Ghanaian context, there's more of understanding, appreciating people. But anytime we watch some of these things, we get to realize that our own people are not accepted elsewhere. And so we need to make Ghana a home. As the gentleman said, we have to think for ourselves. Our parents have fought for their independence for us. Now we have to build our nation. And we have to work in such a way that when people come home, they can be happy. If our brethren from the diaspora who have been there for a very long time come home, they can feel that, look, I'm home. Even though there has been a change, in terms of time and everything, this is still home. I love my people, they love me, they accept me, they don't look down on me, they don't make me feel like I'm from somewhere. So we have a role to play. For the Western world, we can't blame them much. That is their country, they are developing their own, and definitely they want to give their best to their own. But we would have to also begin to think about what we need to do, especially when what makes Europe what it is because of the resources that we have, which they come and based on the knowledge that they produce and then send it back to us. So we, I think, have learned a lot over time in history to know that we have to do what we need to do as a nation to build ourselves. And then, with values like love, compassion, we can be able to build a nation or a continent that will be an example unto many. We know of the past empires, the Ghana, the Mali, the Songhai, and how these have brought about a lot of transformation. We can always get back there. We have what it takes. We don't need extra. We all have to just know that we have a cause to fight for. Give it all our strength, take our education seriously, and then do the best for our nation. And I think tomorrow we'll also sit back like the friends, the 9 friends, and also say that we began something, and today our nation and our continent is enjoying. So that's what I can say, at least with what I've watched today. Thank you.
Come down.
Yeah, I wanted to give a quote from Dr. Bobby Wright. I just gave a talk a couple of days ago on this idea of moral suasion. Does everyone know what moral suasion is? Has anyone ever heard that term before? Moral suasion is trying to use morality and ethics in order to persuade someone to do something. That's moral suasion, right? Now, Dr. Bobby E. Wright was a psychologist. He's passed away since, but he has an essay called The Psychopathic Racial Personality. And I just want to quote it for you just to put something in context. So he says, behavioral scientists generally agree that the outstanding characteristics of the psychopathic personality are the almost complete absence of ethical or moral development and an almost total disregard for appropriate patterns of behavior. This characteristic has led to a misunderstanding of the psychopath as someone who does not know the difference between right and wrong. This belief is not true. Psychopaths simply ignore the concept of right and wrong. By ignoring this trait in the white race, the lack of ethical and moral development, blacks have made and are still making a tragic mistake in basing the worldwide black liberation movement on moral suasion. It is pathological for blacks to keep attempting to use moral suasion on a people who have no morality where race is the variable. I hope everyone got that. Then I want to give another quote from Malcolm X, and just in the context of this idea of being an American. But he says, and he's talking to other black people, he says, what you and I need to do is learn to forget our differences. When we come together, we don't come together as Baptists or Methodists. You don't catch hell because you're a Baptist, and you don't catch hell because you're a Methodist. You don't catch hell because you're a Baptist or Methodist. You don't catch hell because you're a Democrat or a Republican. You don't catch hell because you're a Mason or an Elk. And you sure don't catch hell because you're an American. Because if you was an American, you wouldn't catch no hell. You catch hell because you're a black man. You catch hell, all of us catch hell for the same reason. So we're all black people, so-called Negroes, second-class citizens, ex-slaves. You're nothing but an ex-slave. You don't like to be told that, but what else are you? You're ex-slaves. You didn't come here on the Mayflower. You came here on a slave ship, in chains, like a horse, or a cow, or a chicken. And you were brought here by the people who came here on the Mayflower. You were brought here by the so-called pilgrims, or founding fathers. They were the ones who brought you here. We have a common enemy. We have this in common. We have a common oppressor, a common exploiter, and a common discriminator. But once we all realize that we have this common enemy, then we unite on the basis of what we have in common. And what we have foremost in common is that enemy, the white man. He's an enemy to all of us. I know some of you don't, I know some of you all think that some of them are not enemies. Time will tell. Time will tell. So I bring those up in reference to both documentaries. One, you have black people who have a hard time getting over the differences that we have despite the fact that we have a common enemy. I remember looking at a video and it was two antelopes that were butting heads. These two antelopes were butting heads, and it's, you know, it's a video like a nature video. Then all of a sudden out of the frame comes a cheetah, and the cheetah did not stop and ask, are you this type of antelope or are you that type of antelope? Are you an antelope that jumps 2 inches high or 3 inches high? It didn't ask, are you an antelope who eats grass or leaves? The cheetah was very clear that all antelopes are the same in regard to its policy on antelopes, right? So you have black people in Brazil. You have black people here on the continent of Africa. But what we have in common, all the way from the farmer to the king, all the way from the one in Brazil to the one in the US to the one in Australia to the one in West Papua New Guinea, is that we have a common enemy. Now what we could do is be like a zebra and say, oh, your stripes are vertical and mine are horizontal. Let's have some type of contest over who is the most zebra-ish over that. But the lions who are surrounding the zebras, they don't care about any of those zebra concerns. They don't care whether you call yourself a capitalist zebra, or a socialist zebra, or a Ghanaian zebra, or a Brazilian zebra, or an American zebra. The lions have one policy with regard to zebras, And I think we know what that is. That policy is dinner. So for us as black people, regardless of location, regardless of gender, regardless of class, or regardless of any of those things, we have to come to a point to understand that we have common enemies. And whether or not we want to say that they're all evil, or they're all this, or they're all that, or they're all whatever, what we come to is that they all want to survive. They just have different methods of that survival. Some will be very mean to you, and they think that's their best way to survive. Some will be very nice to you, and they think that's their best way to survive, because they think maybe in the future you may get power, and we want some of you to think that some of us are nice, because otherwise you're going to do what we did to you. There's a proverb in Chi, they say, and it translates to one who cuts throats is afraid to lay on his back. So if you get into an elevator and you see a white woman clutching her purse, it's because that white woman thinks something called justice exists in the world. And if something called justice exists in the world, you would take that purse and perhaps you would do something similar to what her predecessors, I don't want to use the word ancestor, what her predecessors did to your ancestors. I hope you're following along. So these are just a couple of the points that I want to, make very clear just in terms of my perspective on these things, because I don't want you leaving out of there and saying, oh, the black Brazilians don't think that they're African, because I know continental Africans who don't think that they're African. They think that they're Arabs, or they think that they're Afropolitan, or they think that they're everything other than an African. In yesterday's video, Paul said African solidarity is a myth, or something to that effect, because the Moroccans did not, look out for him. And it really let me know that Paul had gone to school, but he never got an education, because the Moroccans are not African. They are our very first invaders, imperialists, and they are still on stolen soil. They're still enslaving black people there in Morocco to this very day. When I talk about these pale white Eurasians, whether we call them Arabs, it's like Malcolm X said, and I'll paraphrase, he said, whether you have a Chihuahua, or an Irish Setter, or a German Shepherd, or a French Poodle, they're all dogs. They're all dogs. And with us, in relationship to all these pale white Eurasians, it may help us to see our commonalities and then also see their commonalities, that what all of them have in common is that none of them are looking out for the best interests of our African children, nor should they. That's our job. However, what we often do is they're looking after their children, and then we're also looking after their children. It's like being on a plantation and you are suckling the so-called master's child, but who's there to suckle your own child? So as you are loving everyone else, that is tantamount to self-hatred on your own children. I hope you're following along. So these are just a few thoughts, and I'll pass it back off to the audience for any other thoughts. And I have a few others, but I'll pass the mic.
Okay, so mine is just some observations I've made. You see, when Ebola came, the sickness, we were told that it has no cure, and that Ebola emanated from some river around Guinea. Pardon? Congo. Okay. Fast forward, they started killing millions of people in Africa, all in Africa, and then all of a sudden, when it killed about five doctors, there was a cure for it. All of a sudden, there was a cure for Ebola. And that's one. I was reading an ad on Facebook, and it was about a doctor who said the HIV virus was created. He said it was created. And I was wondering, how many times does HIV/AIDS kill a white person? When you look at the stats today, South Africa is the country with the most number of recorded HIV cases. And it's like most of people who die from HIV are from Africa. So I was wondering, is it that we are the only people who have raw sex or what? So you see, we have to be very, very careful. Some diseases I believe are being created by these whites to kill us as a way of trying to exterminate us from the surface of the world. So you have to be very, 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 very careful. Thank you very much.
So, myself and Nana Yao are working on a project, I think I mentioned it before, on apartheid, integration, and untouchability. So it's a tricontinental study of the US, South Africa, and India. And basically, our enemies pose our problem in the framework of integration, that our whole problem is that we're not close enough to them. Once we get closer to them, all of our problems are magically resolved. So in the US, they even in there, they're talking about integration as though that's a problem. However, we looked at the concept of genocide as defined by the UN. And I mentioned it before, genocide, killing members of the group, causing bodily or mental harm to members of the group, bringing about conditions to destroy that group in whole or in part, preventing births within the group or transferring children from that group to another group. Those are the 5 conditions of genocide. So what we showed is using documented evidence that in the US that was the case in the past and that is the case right now, all 5 conditions. In South Africa, that was the case in the past, that is the case right now. In India, the black people there in India, blacker than many continental Africans, that was the case in the past, that is the case right now. However, in all 3 cases, we have heroes that are presented to us by our enemies. In the US, that hero is Martin Luther King. In South Africa, that hero is Nelson Mandela. And then in India, that hero is Gandhi. So in all 3 cases, they say that your problem is you're not integrated with us. Once you integrate with the ones who are committing genocide, just come closer to us. I have a knife and I have blood streaming from my mouth. Your problem is you're not close enough, come closer. Same thing in South Africa. The problem is apartheid. You're apart from us. So now just come a little closer, right? Even though I'm committing genocide against you, same thing in India. The problem is untouchability. We don't allow you to touch us. So now come closer so we can touch you. I hope you're following along. So basically the thesis is that you cannot resolve issues of genocide by getting closer to the ones who are committing genocide against you. Now coming to the South Africa case specifically, one of the documented cases of evidence, look up the name Gould, G-O-U-L-D. He did a PhD thesis and then later a book on Project Coast. Now Project Coast is what it was an attempt to get a Rako virus or any type of thing that could be used in order to selectively exterminate black people. So they were looking for viruses, bacteria, chemicals, anything that could be used to sterilize the populace, to kill the populace. So what they would do, and this actually relates to one of the films that we saw before on South African journalists, is that if you are a rabble-rouser, they would arrest you, and they would use that arrest, and they talked about people who would be arrested they were never heard from again. Now we know exactly what happened to them, that they would be arrested and then they would be tested on, right? So if you're looking at anthrax, anthrax was something that affected cows, you understand? But they were using anthrax in order to see, is this something that can selectively kill black people? I hope you're following along. So there was a white doctor named Wouter Basson who was actually found guilty of this. You know, chemistry, going into all of these things, trying to find things that would selectively kill black people, and all of this was documented. And as they were transitioning from the white rule government, that they transferred those records from South Africa to Washington, D.C. to the United States. The patent on Ebola is also held in the United States. You can actually look that up. So these are some of the things that, you know, as you become more aware, it becomes very clear. If you look at Planned Parenthood, even when we talk about lynching, even when we talk about Black Lives Matter and all these stories, that we showed a documentary called Maafa 21, where within the course of 2 to 3 days, more black babies are exterminated than all of the lynching and all of the police killings put together in the course of 3 days. And those same people, those same ones, Dalton, a cousin of Darwin, the same ones who founded this eugenics movement are the exact same ones who founded the Planned Parenthood and the Marie Stopes International. When you read the quotes from those who founded these things that are just there to help you do your abortions, you would be amazed. So Margaret Sanger says, we can use the ministers because if the idea gets out to any of the more rebellious Negroes that we don't want the word to get out that we want to exterminate them, and the ministers can help us if that idea occurs to some of the more rebellious Negroes. This is the founder of Planned Parenthood. The Planned Parenthood centers are in the black community. So it's not about class because there are poorer white communities, but the Planned Parenthood, they themselves have to come to the black community to do it because they're targeting black people selectively. So, you know, these are things to look up. Look up that thesis on Project Coast, because again, what they would do, they would experiment on them, they would kill them, then they would take a helicopter, go out into the ocean around South Africa and dump the body. That's the name Project Coast because they were dumped off of the coast. So a lot of these freedom fighters and leaders, you can't find their bodies anymore. No one has heard from them anymore, but now we know exactly where they are. They've joined the largest graveyard in the history of the entire world, what they now call the Atlantic Ocean. 200 million and counting black African people. All right, so you turn it back off to Jim's concerns.
Let me just pass a quick one. This just reminds me of an analogy that Dr. Chris Wilson gives. And what she says is, you know, when you have black coffee, when you want your coffee in a very powerful state, you want it to be black. Now, what happens to the black coffee when you start adding cream to it? The black coffee starts losing its essence, the power that it has. And so that analogy is just in reference to how white people, what we call liberal whites, have infiltrated very genuine African ideas, and how in the end they have brought them down to its knees. You understand? And so when you have you are making huge plans. You are making plans of taking back what belongs to you. And some white people appear as liberals and they want to help you. In the end, they end up reducing the efficacy of the plan that you had. And some African leaders have realized that. Take Steve Biko, for instance. Steve Biko of South Africa, who established what we call the Black Consciousness Movement. There was this association in South Africa known as the South African Student Organization, SASO. Now, initially, SASO was multiracial, you know, trying to draw from that liberal and moderate approach. But Steve Biko realized that anytime they made plans to go on demonstration and racist, they realized the apartheid police regime was always a step ahead of them. And so he sat there and realized, I mean, what is really happening? So he decided to remove all the white people from the group and then establish what you call NWASAS, National Union of South African Students, which was only made up of black students. And then he began to realize how effective their protest and their demonstration against the apartheid regime would be. And so it just goes on to say that, just like Dr. Campbell says, to the cheetah, I mean to the lion or to the fox, a zebra is a zebra. And that brings us to the idea of how African leaders and the African Union, and somebody would now some scholars will now classify them as intellectual lazy dogs. In the wake of Black Lives Matter and how African Americans are almost under constant persecution, you've not seen one African leader or the African Union even release a statement, a press release, in solidarity to the black predicament or to the black struggle elsewhere. Yet they are quick to offer that same solidarity to European countries when they are attacked by terrorists. So it is just like removing the speck of sawdust, refusing to remove the speck of sawdust, I mean in your own eyes, and then trying to do the same for some other people. Because the point is that when the policeman stop or when the policeman racially abuse or kill black people, they don't ask whether you are coming from Africa or you're in America. To them, all you need to do is to have just a dose of melanin in your blood. Black is black, and that's it. So it just tells us, recently there was this news on BBC that a white woman was stopped by a police officer, and because of the extent to which people have been met by police, the woman was shivering to remove her ID from the purse. The policeman, who was a white man, got close to him and said, "Don't worry, ma'am, don't you know we only kill white people, black people? Don't worry, we only kill what? Black people." So I think we need to know that whether they are radicals or whether they are ultra-nationalists or white supremacists, they come in different ways. Some will be open, some will also come as fox or lions in the skins of sheep. And we need to be very, very much aware of them. And then we also need to have that conscience. Africans must show solidarity with the black struggle. Not only the African Americans, they are not the only people who are of African descent in the world, right? There are those in the Pacific Islands, right? Those West Papua Guinea, those from Bougainville, right? They are also under constant persecution. There are Aborigines in Australia. They are also under constant persecution. So we need also to, we don't have to fall prey to what you call the dominance of the Atlantic hegemony, to always analyze the African diaspora through the perspective of, you know, the Black Atlantic, African Americans. There are also other people of Africa who are also under constant persecution that we also need to show solidarity. Thank you.
Any other thoughts, ideas, contributions?
Our problem actually sometimes it all boils down to our leaders. No, there's an African proverb which says that when a fish wants to get rotten, it all starts from the head. Sometimes we can do anything possible to get there where we want to be, but our leaders, all of them have become, philanthropic pets to all the Europeans. And when they call them, they only go there to get and beg, and they dictate for them whatever they want them to come and do here. So actually everything boils down to our leaders. And this very, very generation, I think our leaders have to go. They are total failures. And until they are gone, it's really going to be tough. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. I also have a question. I think knowing our history is very important, and it's something we should endeavor to learn and pass on from one generation to another. But my main question is that at this day and age, in our contemporary times, should we be concerned about the total extermination or annihilation of the black man? Is it possible? Is it practically possible? Can it happen? Is it something we should be concerned about? Like whites wanting to kill or exterminate the black man. Is it practically possible? Is it something that we should put our efforts into? Thank you.
Before I even start answering that question, I think there are so many ways of killing a cat. You do not have to be practically dead for them to have achieved their goals. Okay, there are so many means by which you could be physically living, but practically you will not be essential. You will not matter. Okay, so we must understand that it's a genetic warfare, but you do not have to be dead for them to have achieved their aims. There are so many things they can do to you for them to. It's more or less like a survival of the fittest game. Only the strong survive. And so I do not have to kill you to have won the game. There are other means by which I can go about to make sure that physically you are living, but it don't matter. And at the end of the day, we call the shot. You get the point. I'll come back to it, but let me give it to the camera.
There's one thing that my father says, and he's been thinking about this for quite some time, where he says that there are two programs going on right now. One is that whites want to kill us. Two is that they want us to kill ourselves, while they profit from that subtle suicide, that slow demise. So let's look at the first one. Though they want to kill us, I've given some references on that already. It's very well documented in the past and currently. The other side is that they want us to kill ourselves. We mentioned before Monsanto, which was purchased by Bayer. So if you're looking at GMOs, this is one way to make sure that you are killed, both health-wise, but then also in terms of food security. So you have these suicide seeds, so every year you have to go back to some of these corporations like Monsanto, ADM, so forth and so on, in order to get seeds. So anytime that they decide they don't want you around, you don't have anything to plant. That's another one. Then the Bayer side is these pharmaceutical companies. So once you get sick, now you have to go to them in order to get the drugs that they will actually just treat the symptoms. You understand? They'll rent you a cure for the symptoms. That's it. So these are, two things to concern ourselves about. And I remember in the late 90s, early 2000s, you saw a lot of these, new fast food joints that were popping up, from your Popeye to whatever. What is this? Southern Fried Chicken, like all these places. And as I was passing by there, I said, in about 10 years, there's going to be a big health food industry and a big keep fit industry, because all these people who are going to be suffering the effects of the things that they're eating right now, in the future they're going to be searching for, what can I do to try to save myself? Now if I look at a place like Relish in Osu that is selling herbs, I see all these people with these big bellies who are in there and Relish is making money hand over fist, because all these people who are doing things to kill themselves, and not just that they just wanted to do those things, but they are made to have a taste and a desire for these things that are ultimately not beneficial to them, but also finance their own oppressors. So if you look at the KFC that's here now, if you look at the Pizza Hut that's here now, all of these US Kit Kat that's here now, all these things are things that they are using in order to get you to kill yourself, while they make money in the process of your demise. You understand? So it's not something, you ask, is it something to worry about? I wouldn't say it's something to worry about. It's something to take concrete measures to counteract by growing your own food, for example. We had Dr. Carnita who was talking about her organic food co-op that started right here across the road from Legon. You understand? So again, I'm worried. It's now I know I have an enemy who's coming to kill me. It's like in South Carolina where you have this white boy who came into the church and killed these non-parishioners, right? Now, inappropriate behavior would be, I'm the deacon and you're the minister, who's higher, who's better, and we're looking at the differences between each other. Appropriate behavior is, we have a common enemy. What can we do about this common enemy? You understand? So I think it's all about taking concrete steps, because this isn't a new thing. It didn't start during enslavement. It didn't start during colonialism. The very first documents in the history of the entire world are trying to explain the behavior of these Eurasians, these pale white Eurasians. The Instructions to Merikare is trying to say what's going on in their environment that makes them so wicked. The Prophecy of Nefertiti is trying to go into what's going on when they come into our land, the land of black people, to bring about havoc and destruction. The admonitions of Ipu, where I'm mentioning these texts, and I'm sure almost no one has ever read any of these texts, but the very first text in the history of the entire world on any subject, we're trying to deal with what's going on with these pale white Eurasians who keep trying to come in and kill us black people. I hope you're following along. So these are things to keep in mind. It's not a new thing, but we don't know about this ancient history, much less do we even know about recent history. So we look at every single day as though it's a brand new thing. How come they're treating us mean? Discrimination, racism, that's not what it's about. It's about genocide. And it's about white survival, but from our side, it also has to be about black survival.
Just a quick one. What Professor John Henry Clark said, that, I mean, you've been sent out there to go to school, to acquire some knowledge. to develop where you are coming from. And that educational degree cannot be acquired in between the legs of a white woman. And so I was just looking at this African that goes to Brazil and ends up getting married to a white woman, right? Because in the end, the whole idea is for you to keep your things amongst yourself. But then you go out there, and instead of getting a black woman, the other issue is also that you get involved with this kind of white issues, and at the end of the day, you become some sort of subservient, or it compromises the way you even think because you are involved with them. And so it just goes back to looking at how eventually if you involve yourself with these white people in that manner, it compromises the extent to which you are supposed to be sharp. Dr. Kambon, what do you think about that? I mean, just give us a vision from that.
I would concur with Nana Yao's assessment that there's a line from a film called Quilombo. I'm not sure if we've shown it for any of our film series, but it's about the ruler of the Quilombo before Ganga Zumba, named Akochirene. And she says that when you see the whites of their eyes, what that does is that it starts to make your heart softer. It makes you think, oh, they're human too, or it makes you, you understand. A similar statement made by Chancellor Williams in his book, Destruction of Black Civilization, that goes into what happened. If we had these great civilizations, what happened for them to fall? And basically it comes to white infiltration coming in. But he also says, when you see the whites of their eyes, that's the beginning of the destruction of your civilization. So again, and we can actually look at historical cases where this actually occurred, that when you allow your enemies to infiltrate, now if you don't know that they're your enemy, that's one thing, but now we have over 5,000 years of documented history of this. Unfortunately, most of us don't know any of it. But we have over 5,000 years of documented history of this, of what happens every single time you allow them to come in. You taught the Greeks, and that's according to Plato, that's according to Solon, that's according to Thales, that's according to all the Greeks, because they weren't in on this thing that, oh, Greeks started something. They weren't in on it. That's a very recent thing. So we taught the Greeks then come in and bring about the end of our civilization of Kemet, the land of black people. Alexander the Greek of Macedonia, right? So what happens when you teach your enemies? Well, what obviously happens is that they come back in as your conquerors. So these are some of the things to keep in mind. And they always use, the question of, sometimes we talk about the white man as a problem. However, we have to start thinking about the ones who raise these white men to be the way that they are. You understand? So it's a complementary thing between the white man and the white woman. And oftentimes they send their white women on some of our black leaders. So we actually had a discussion of Cheikh Anta Diop, who was married to a white woman. Of course, Leopold Sedar Senghor, of course, married to a white woman. We went down the list of all, Julius Nyerere, Ivan van Sertima. We went down the whole list of all these people. Kwame Nkrumah, right, whose building we're sitting in right now. All of these black leaders who are married to white women. How can you fully be for the cause of black people when you always have to worry about what you're going to lay down beside in that night? And that is the role of the white people, and the white women specifically. So I hope Nana Yao doesn't go and get married to some Neanderthal.
I went. Chiwezo, Professor Chiwezo said, Nkrumah started really as a radical Pan-Africanist. He got to North America and got an Egyptian, a white woman. He came back from the room and all of a sudden he was something up. So I won't get involved with one. Do something.
All right, thank you.
I came in late. I mean, I missed much of today. So I guess all I can say is to thank all of you who have been with us from Monday to now. Professor Nii Coker, who flew all the way from the US to join in this festival. And to you, our students, vibrant young men, last four standing. But still, I mean, I remember your faces. I really do hope that your presence here to yourselves have fulfilled whatever you came for. That you're leaving this place better, with a lot of insights, enlightened, and more importantly, that you're going to step out of this door and demand a new reality, right? And we hope to meet when we have to meet. Yeah, okay, so thanks so much for coming. Oh yeah, we also have to thank Professor
Blacknificent, Blacktastic,
exactly.
Blastocular, Blacknificent,
Blackstounding.
Well, I'm going to say one thing. I try not to get into them. I like listening to the debates because it kind of helps as we begin to formulate and receive more documentaries next year. I'm sorry, thank you. I should go. As we begin to receive more documentaries next year, this debates kind of help me to realize, okay, when we see more next year, I'll share with, Prof. Cambon to see, okay, I think this is where your crowd is, this is where the niche is, this is where we should, maybe make more selections. But the one thing is, he's been alone. And, I don't know how else you guys should support. Because he's the only one who responds to emails, he's the only one who helps with selections. I mean, I don't know if these were some of your colleagues that were copied, but, he's the only one who, sometimes will be working late into the night. And sometimes I'll get his emails back 4 a.m. in the morning. Because this is a process that, it happens very fast. And if you don't let the filmmakers know right away, they go somewhere else. And because everybody's hustling to get their film shown somewhere. And if they don't know if you guys are going to select it or not, they just say, oh, sorry.
The ones who are making decisions now are completely ignorant of who they are and whose they are. So if we can get people who now know who they are and then they get into some decision-making position, that's where we'll see a change. But they have this concept, garbage in, garbage out. If everyone gets the exact same miseducation, diseducation, and anti-education, then the end results are all these things that we're talking about and complaining about right now. So if we put a different input into our science experiment, then we'll get a different output. So this is what we must be doing. And not only mopping the floor, but we have to turn off the tap. What we're doing now, we're mopping the floor, but the miseducation system is still creating anti-Africans every day. And we're trying to catch 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So it's an uphill job, but someone must do it, and I thank all of you for being part of that job. Mesdames,
Merci.
Merci.